Hey, Nicole Roberts Jones here, and welcome back to another Meaningful Work podcast. So, we're in a series. This is part two in the relationship currency series. See, my necklace is tall, turned around. I'm beyond excited. So, by the way, out of the gate, before I start, if you haven't listened to part one, if you're not new to me, you already know what I'm getting ready to say. If you're new, then you have to know when I have a series, the way I teach, one builds on the next. I'm going to do a little bit of review, but I want to make sure you go back and watch the first episode. So, again, if you missed any of that, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. And I don't have it typed up here, so let me type it real quick, which is www.nrjnetwork.com. And the reason also, those of you that are listening in on an audio, one of our audio podcast partners, I'm going to encourage you to come on over to YouTube. Why? Because when I am here solo, that means I'm teaching you, which means I have slides. And because I have so much to give you, listen, I've been teaching this stuff for over 30 years. How old am I? That means I have over 96, probably way more than that, probably more like 180 hours of content that I could teach you at any given time. So I'm always going to encourage you to come on to the YouTube channel because the slides allow you to keep up with where I'm going. Okay. So again, we started a series last episode. This is a 3-part series. This is part 2, and it's called Relationship Currency. Now, I gave this to you last episode. I want to walk you through this one more time so you understand what I mean by currency. Okay. So according to the dictionary, currency is a system of money in general use in a particular country. And we know that already, right? But here's the other 2 definitions I really want you to key in on when we're talking about relationships. It's circulation as a medium of exchange. And think about the word relationship. It has relay in it. And I wonder if you realize that the relay you have with those that are in your circle or around you is either circulation that's either depositing something great or it's taking and dissipating. The last definition here says the fact or quality of being generally accepted or in use. Get that? Accepted or in use. So my question to you, as before we even start this part 2, is I want you to think about who is on your team. You're gonna hear me talk about currency and team dynamics interchangeably. I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. But I need you to begin to realize there's a quote that talks about you being the sum total of the 5 people closest to you. So who do you have pouring into you? Personally, professionally? And today we're going to talk about an additional person on the personal tip called the 6th man advantage. I'll explain that in a second, but let me finish review. Okay. So I want you to get that because either people are either depositing or withdrawing. Now, if you go to your bank and you keep withdrawing, and you never make a deposit, what's going to happen? Yeah, you either going to be in deficit or they're going to keep your card and say you don't have any money. The same thing happens in relationships. And I talked about this in detail in part 1, but quick review, right? So part 1, I talked about your net worth is in the power of your network. Gave you multiple steps around that. Then we broke into the power of your social circle. And it's things that you don't even realize that you need in your life. If you're going to win in this game of life, if you're going to continue to grow and expand and do the work you've been crafted and created to do, your circle makes a difference. And then the last thing I walked you through in part 1, oh, wait a minute, is iron sharpens iron. So a man or woman sharpens the countenance of his or her friend. That's Proverbs 27:17. So last episode, I looked at continence and I walked you through this and I want you to get it because it's important for this episode as well. Continence generally refers to a person's face or facial expression or demeanor after conveying their inner state or mood. So again, looking at this Bible verse, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance, the mood, the outward state of being for his or her friend. That's really what we're looking at when we look at relationship currency. All right. So the last thing we talked about in part 1 was building your top 5. Now, again, if you missed any of those parts, please go back and watch it because I'm not going to go in detail, but you need all of that to talk about what we're going to talk about in this episode, which is the 6th man advantage. Now, let me out myself. I'm going to make some sports references, and if I mess them up, roll with me. Just get the point. Don't worry about if I'm messing up my sport reference. So the sixth man is, we talk about basketball. You guys that are here with me on virtual, on YouTube, see the picture of my guy sitting on the bench. He's probably sitting on the ground, but my visual goal was for him to be sitting on the bench. See, when you look at the game of life, the sixth man is not needed or necessary. So, yes, I'm talking about your mate. Some of you may be single. So, I don't want you to feel like this is not important to you, because it is, because I want you to start looking at the kind of mate you're going to call to yourself. Some of you are already in a relationship, and this may be some of the things that aren't working in your relationship. And why am I such an expert? I'm not an expert, but I will tell you how I learned these lessons the hard way. So I call it the sixth man advantage, because the sixth man comes off of the bench. And so sometimes you'll call them in and they'll be that extra person you needed to win the game. And sometimes you'll call them in and they'll fumble the ball. So you've got to know how to use your sixth man to your advantage. Y'all get that? Bible verse, I got to bring in some Bible. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So again, you guys know I'm using the team aspect. So think about it like this. You become one team. If you're one team, aren't you playing from the same playbook? Now, what happens when you get in a relationship and you guys have all together different plays? Can you imagine if you're watching the Lakers or the I live in DC now. I can't think of the DC basketball team. I'm from LA, y'all, so I'm always going to say the Lakers, right? Because the Lakers were bad back in the day. Anyway, I grew up with Magic and that whole team, okay? So if they were not all playing from the same playbook, the Lakers would not be as powerful as they are or once were. If I look at even the Dallas Cowboys as a football team, they were powerful in their heyday because they all were playing from one playbook, one band, one sound, one flesh. Okay. So even looking at this concept further, you guys know I love me some Tony Evans. My Tony Evans study Bible, nice reading Bible commentary, says this about this Bible verse, which is to say they share a unity of purpose while retaining their uniqueness as individuals. That's what he's interpreting this Bible verse to mean. They share a unity of purpose. I'm getting excited while retaining their uniqueness as individuals. I need you to understand this. When I think about every relationship that failed, let me keep it all the way real. When I think about every relationship that failed prior to dating my husband, it's because my mate was trying to make me into something that I wasn't, or they didn't fully appreciate parts of me. Talk about all of that. I'm gonna tell you all my business, right? I was trying to get my husband to be on here with me, but our schedules didn't jive. So you get me solo, but just know I've learned these things in our conversation. Listen, I have the benefit of marrying a man that I call myself his upgrade wife. I was a second wife. So he learned some lessons in his first marriage that he made sure and talked to me about because he didn't want to repeat them in his second. I also studied relationships because I realized that the reason why my relationships weren't working prior to this is I was letting go of part of myself to be in that relationship. You should never have to be a 5%, a 10%, or a 20% version of you to be in a relationship. If they can't accept all of you, then they don't love you. Come on, somebody. So we're going to dig into this because I think this is a powerful conversation, especially for powerful women. Because oftentimes we end up feeling like we have to let go of part of ourselves to be in a relationship. No, you don't. Not when you meet the right mate, the sixth man that's going to come in the game to win, not to withdraw, but to deposit and help you move your game forward, right? So what I'm going to walk you through in this episode are the 4 principles to harness the power of your sixth man. Now, listen. Again, whether you are married or you're single, if you're single, this is going to give you some great insight and conversations to have as you're dating. If you're married, this might give you some great little tweaks. Maybe some things are off. And trust me, my relationship is not perfect, but some of these things are where things are off. The 4 principles I'm going to walk you through, I would heavily suggest you look at that. In addition to this, the sixth man could even be in business partnership. Maybe you've been a solopreneur, or maybe you've been working a corporate career and you're getting ready to start a business and you're bringing in a partner. Same principles will apply. Okay. Y'all with me? By the way, if you didn't get a pen, you go grab one because I'm getting ready to go in. We're going to start with the first principle. First principle is you've got to love, honor, and respect. Love, honor, and respect. Now, listen, here's my Bible verse foundation for this one. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. By the way, the whole chapter 13 in 1 Corinthians is they call that the love chapter. Okay. And here's what it says. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Right? So when I think about this Bible verse, it makes me think of all the times in previous relationships, because I know y'all haven't done this, so I'm gonna talk about me. Well, I kept all the things, and you did this, and then you did this, and I kept the record of wrongs. First of all, the fact that I had to keep them to remind him that he was doing wrong, yeah, that's already the ingredients of a relationship that's going wrong. When I have to put in your face that you did something wrong to me, now mind you, there is no such thing as a perfect relationship. Things are gonna be off, but I shouldn't have to keep a record of your wrongs to prove you're wrong. It does not envy, meaning that when my husband is doing great, I am so excited and I'm trying to help him win. The same way, listen, I remember, and think I'm gonna tell this story later, but I'm gonna tell it now. I'm probably all the way off, but it just popped in my spirit. So I told you every man prior to my husband would fight me over owning a business. And I remember when I started dating Daryl, I was a little leery about letting him be a part of my business because of the predecessors before him always had a problem with the fact that I had a business and it was doing well. And will never forget this. We were at one of my, and by the way, my back then I had a nonprofit and I had a fundraiser every year. It was a big fashion event, celebrities. This is in LA and all the things. And because I was dating my husband at the time, I brought him in and I sat him in the audience. I didn't expect him to help. Now, mind you, we're in the back setting up and all the things. I brought him in, sat him down, said, "You sit here, enjoy the show. I'll see you at the end." My team and volunteers were all setting up. Now, the event was part inside, part outside. Outside for the pre-event was our silent auction. Well, it started to rain in LA. Hello. And so I run outside. Someone says, "Nicole, it's raining. It's raining." I'm like, "Oh my God." So I run outside to try to figure out what to do with the silent auction. And I see people running, putting stuff in another place. And I said, "What are y'all doing?" And they said, "The man in the brown suit." Well, guess who the man in the brown suit was? That was my husband. He saw a need. I didn't ask him to do anything. He went in and started to take it. And then he said, "Baby, I got this. You go do what you were doing." In that moment, well, I knew before then, but that was like the cherry on top of the I know I'm gonna marry this man pie because he stepped in, love, honor, respect. He never felt like he was playing small. He never felt like he was behind me because he's not, he's beside me. And every man before that either told me, "Don't why you got to tell people what you're doing," or had these feelings because they were envying what I was doing. I want you guys to get this. My husband doesn't envy. He finds his place and helps me, as should a good girlfriend too. And they do that too, right? So here's a quote from Henry Thurman that I love that says, "Love has no awareness of merit or demerit. It has no scale. Love loves. That's its nature." Even further, in Romans 12:10, it says, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love, honor one another above yourselves." See, in that moment, the man in the brown suit was honoring me. He wasn't even worried that he was already dressed up. Mind you, we all had on t-shirts and sweats. We weren't dressed. All my team that was working, we were all dressed down. Daryl was dressed for the event. He had taken his jacket off, rolled his sleeves up, and was making it happen. And so I wonder if you really look at your top five players and even the sixth man, are they honoring who you are in everything they're doing? Do you feel unconditional love coming from them? Or do you feel like you have to not be part of you to be in relationship with them? Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's all I'm going to say right there. See, honor is a gift we give to each other. Love is a gift that we give to each other. And so the question is, how are you gifting others with love that comes from you? See, it's not contingent on how you feel in that moment. So, like for instance, the times that my husband gets on my nerves, I get on his. It's not contingent on that moment. It just made me think of another story. So, the fundraiser before this one, this is so funny. I had just started dating my husband in this one. And we were in a boutique in Beverly Hills, St. John Boutique. I had a fundraiser in St. John's in Beverly Hills. And imagine my husband is not from LA. Yes, we were dating long distance. And I needed ice. So I said, I need you to go get some ice. He's like, I don't. I said, I need you to just figure it out. And I walked away. Now, any other man would be like, no, she didn't. And I'm not doing. He didn't get mad. He knew I was in production mode. I was focused. He went and found somebody else. One of my girlfriend's husbands said, hey man, come show me where we can get some ice. And they went off to get some ice. I'm giving you these examples because in my previous relationships, oh baby, that would have been a fight right there on the premises. And even if I did offend Daryl and we laughed about it later, how funky I was, right? And I said, oh baby, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize. And we laughed about it later. But in that moment, he honored who I was. He honored what was happening and honored the work I was doing. He let go of every other feeling he was having because it's not about emotion in that moment. It's about I needed him to step up. Y'all get that? I'm giving personal examples, right? Here's another great quote. Love is more than words or 3 words. Love is more than 3 words mumbled before bedtime. Love is sustained by action, a pattern of devotion in the things we do for each other every day. That's by Nicholas Sparks. So it shows up when I'm really, really tired and I see Daryl has ordered food because he has already realized that I'm tired. Or when Daryl has taken long trips, I'm careful to support him. I might pack a little note, put it in his luggage so he knows that I'm thinking about him, a little miss you note. Sometimes I might decorate our house when he comes home. There's been times and he's had a birthday and been on the road because Daryl's always about work. And he's like, birthday is another day. We'll celebrate it later. But I'll decorate our house so when he comes in. It's thinking about the small things that let people know that you see them, that you honor them, that you cherish them, right? It's even when my bonus kids were little and we made every decision together. Now, keep in mind, my bonus kids are not my kids. So he could have left me out of decisions and just told me what we were going to do. But my husband always brought me into the decision-making process because he honored who I was. Even when one of them, and if one of them is watching, would say, well, why do I have to listen to you? Oh, my husband would get right in there and goes, because. See, he always honored me. And I honored him likewise. Relay, 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 relationship. That's that team. One band, one sound, playing from the same playbook. Y'all get that? Which moves us to number 2. Number 2 is make a commitment. I see so many people that want to quit when the going gets rough, and it gets rough. But that's a time, in my humble opinion, when you need to buckle up and hang in there, right? When the going gets rough. So one of my favorite quotes here is by a famous coach, the late, great Vince Lombardi, that said, oh, I'm ahead of myself. Sorry, y'all. Wait a minute. First, you can tell, look, I am so into what I'm saying. I'm not even keeping track of where my slides are. So let me make sure I know where I am, right? So first, you guys, I looked up the word commitment. Okay, I am going to give you Vince Lombardi quote next. But first, let's look at what does commitment mean? It's the act of committing to a charge. It's an agreement or a pledge. It's a state or an instance of being obligated or emotionally impelled. It doesn't say when you don't feel like you don't have to. It doesn't say that it's based on emotion. It says it's an agreement or a pledge, period. This is why we take wedding vows. Better or for worse, richer or for poorer, sickness and in health. You know, it's funny. My husband and I had surgery 6 months apart from each other. I had a surgery and I was down and he was my nurse and ordering food because he can't cook, ordering food and bringing me ice to put on my wounds and doing all the things. And then 6 months later, he had surgery. And then I became nurse, making food, putting ice on his wounds. That's the pledge. Is that I got you no matter what. There's been times where I remember when my mother-in-law was passing away and he had to get to the airport sooner, quicker, faster. And I said, come on, let's go. Now, mind you, I was in the middle of doing something. I had a meeting to attend. I said, I will move my meeting. Let's just come on. I'll get you to the airport faster than you call an Uber and have to wait. Let's go. Because that was his last moment he was going to have to spend time with his mother. I knew he had to get on that plane no matter what. Yes, I was going to be stuck in rush hour traffic on the way back, but it wasn't about me. So again, when you're making a commitment, it's a no matter what. Now, if he's doing something crazy, girl, then that's something else, right? So now I can tell you about Vince Lombardi, famous Vince Lombardi of one of the greatest coaches of all time, that said individual commitment to a group effort, that is what makes a team work, a company work, a society work, a civilization work, a family work, a relationship work. I'm adding to it, by the way, y'all. So again, individual commitment to a group effort. So you've got to be committed to the plays. So if my husband and I agree on something, and sometimes we don't agree, but we say, okay, this is what we're going to decide to do, even if we're not in agreement. I've got to be committed to that play. I'm not going to say for my stepkids, well, I didn't agree with this, but y'all go ahead and do that. No, then that means I'm dissipating. I'm taking away from the decision that has been made. Y'all get that? See, team sport, think about any of your favorite teams. I'm going to keep talking about the Lakers, but I want you to think about your favorite team. The reason they win, I want you to watch how they play together. Even in between games, what is the coach doing? He's walking back through the plays, or she, if it's WNBA. Come on, somebody, right? Walking back through the plays, making the shifts, but all the players have to be playing from the same playbook and be committed to it and committed to win. Sometimes they have to make shifts right on the spot. But when you're committed, it doesn't matter. You're going to go with the shift no matter what. Y'all get that? Bible verse here. John 5:12 that says, my command is this: love each other as I have loved you. After all, when you're getting married to somebody, it's two different people coming together to blend into one life. So there are going to be things that you don't agree on, but you've got to come to an agreement on how you're going to handle it. This is why, usually when you go to premarital counseling, they talk about there's certain things that you want to look at that you should be in agreement with: child rearing, things like how the finances are going to be handled, and religious values. Because when you come up to a hard decision, listen, there are times that listen, if I'm going to keep it completely honest, with my last surgery, I'm on the surgery table and the doctor sees something and he's like, or she, my doctor was a she says, Dadera, what do you want to do? So he made the decision. He was like, he was trying to say, what would Nicole do? I don't know. And then when it was over, he told me, I was like, I trust you. I'm good. And that is how our relationship works, because I know that he will always do what's best for me in the best interest of me, just like he knows that I will do what's in the best interest for him. And that's the commitment that we made. Listen, even further, if you look at God as our example, I don't have this on a slide, but I think it's John 3:16, for God so loved the world, one of my first Bible verses I learned, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Tell me that's not commitment. That God gave his only son because he loved us. That shows you it's not about you. It's not selfish. It doesn't keep a record of wrongs, because listen, as much as we do wrong to God, he always forgives us. So why can't you forgive your mate? Because they're going to do stuff wrong too. And trust me, I have to. Right? So that moves us to number three. Number three, which is celebrating likeness and appreciating differences. Now, I think this one is powerful because here's what I know. There are so many ways that my husband and I are alike and so many ways that we're different. Here are a few. Number one, I'm always going to be dressed on time and be ready 5 minutes before we leave. My husband's going to be changing his outfit 3 or 4 times and be 5 minutes late. I know that about him. So what I do now, and I hope he can't hear me, what I do now is if I want to leave at 3, I tell him we're leaving at 2:45. That gives me that 15-minute bumper for him to just do whatever he going to do. So I still leave at the time I want to leave. Right? I figured out a workaround. So there's no argument. That's who he is. But that doesn't shift how we want to raise our children and our values and all those core values that are so important. By the way, if you've never defined your core values, go back and watch that episode here in the Meaningful Work podcast where we talked about values. Okay. So, I got to bring some Bible in here too. 2 Corinthians 16:14-16. Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communion has light with darkness? Or what part has a believer with an unbeliever? And what agreement has the temple of God with idols? Now, listen, don't take this literally. I want you guys to really, really think about what this means. And I'm going to read what Tony says, Tony Evans, because y'all, again, know I love me some Tony Evans. Here's what Tony Evans says in his commentary Bible about this Bible verse. To become partners with oh, excuse me, to become partners with can also be translated be unequally yoked. So if I said do not become partners with, okay? So by the way, this was written centuries ago. So if I had to shift some of this, then I would say don't become partners with anybody that is acting a complete fool in public when you know you got business to take care of. But communion has somebody that is dark and living an opposite life than you are. So if you have all these values that you honor, so like for instance, my husband and I are big on one way of raising our children. The reason why, dare I say, he and his ex-wife didn't work out is they have two different viewpoints on how they're going to raise children, on discipline, on boundaries, on curfew. I can go on and on. So again, if you're not aligned, how do you be in partnership with someone? One of my good girlfriends, I'll call her C because I don't have permission to say this. She was, and some of y'all gonna know who this is, those of you that know me. She was a chair of my fundraising event, the same one I just talked about. And I remember sometimes we would have a knockout, drag out disagreement. No, I don't want to do that. I would always have the last say because I am the CEO. I'd let her give her insight. She wouldn't agree. And then 5 minutes later, we'd be like, you hungry? Let's go get something to eat. No record of wrongs. Anybody got time to be holding a grudge? But because she and I were on the same team, playing the same game, she knew that ultimately, whatever decision I'm going to make is going to be for the best. The same that if I wasn't present and she made the decision, I would trust it because I knew she would make the decision for the best because we're equally yoked. Y'all get that? So Tony Evans goes on to talk about let me tell you, I don't know why I didn't bring my glasses in here, so I can't see it. That's what pause is. So we're going to just leave that right there. I can't see it. I don't have my readers. I'm in denial that I need readers, right? But I want you to know that this Bible verse really is talking about you want to be on the same page, playing from the same playbook. That is how I interpret that Bible verse. Y'all with me? So with that, I'm walking into number 4, and I'm going to tell you number 4 is my favorite principle. Number 4 is what we call the 3 lives principle. Now, I got to give my husband credit for this one. See, I met my husband again. I told you guys he had already been married. He was determined that this relationship was going to work. So he called it, he had his life, I have my life, and then we have our life together. So he has his boys' night out. I have my girls, girls' night out, and we have a life together. I do stuff with my girlfriends. Sometimes I ask him to just do stuff, and he's like, I think one of your girlfriends should do that. See, the goal here is that you shouldn't be fully so dependent on your man that you lose the rest of your life. I have friends that have gotten married and their relationship is everything, but they leave themselves behind. They're so focused on what does he want? And what does he want? And what does he want? But what about you? And what do you want? That you should never have to let go of part of yourself to be in a relationship. So when you do your own thing, and I have my organizations I'm in, and I go out with my girlfriends and brunch and all the things, and then he goes to cigar and bourbon nights and all the things he does with his guy friends. When we come together, it makes what we do together even more special because we have our own things that we're doing. Doesn't mean that you can't hang out together because my husband is my best friend. So we hang out together too. And also when you are starting a company, and your husband doesn't want to be a part of it, let him be his own person, just like you should be your own person and not obligated to work in theirs unless you feel like it aligns with who God has called you to be. And I think that's so important because so many of us, I've seen so many women lose themselves to be in a relationship. You should never have to be a part of yourself to be in a relationship. So that's it, y'all. That's our 4 principles to really go after the 6-man advantage. If you're going to have a 6-man that comes off the bench, you've got to make sure that you love, honor, respect, that you're making a commitment, both parties. You're celebrating likeness and appreciating differences. And then the 3 lives principles also apply. That my husband doesn't have to be my be all end all. There's things I do with my girlfriends and things I do with my husband. There's things he does with his guys and there's things he does with me. But together we're creating a whole, complete life, lacking nothing. Again, I want you to look at Deposits or withdrawals? Because if people are taking and taking and taking, and you never get to give a part of you, you never get to be fully present, you never get to, guess what? You will be in deficient funds, deficient relay. Your relationship tank will be empty. So as we end part two, oh, and I got a third part, y'all. What do you do with the with people that you need to let go? Because there's some people that don't. After you learn all these things, there's some people that just got to go. Before we talk about that in our next series, next part, let me end you with this. This is Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. And a cord of three strands is not quickly broken. I've heard that said, not easily broken. Now, let me see if my eyes are going to fail me on this one. Okay, I think I might be able to read this one because I highlighted it. So this is in again Tony Evans' study Bible. Without a companion and with no end to struggles, we start to ask, who am I to struggle? Who am I struggling for? In other words, two are better than one for many reasons. If one falls, the other can lift him up, right? And again, we're looking at how a three-pronged cord is not easily broken. So why am I saying all of that at the end of this episode? And I really, when I write Bible verses down for you all, I want to encourage you to go back and read them and see what comes up for you as you read that Bible verse. The reason I'm stopping with that is because that's a whole part of this relay, is that when you're in relationship, whether it's the sixth man or your top five, it's looking at how is that person relaying with you? How are they helping you up? How are they growing you? How are they holding the space for you to grow or to do the things you know you're crafted and created to do? Or how are they challenging you to go past mediocre? To go past the yesterday version of you because there's a tomorrow version of you. How are the members of your team helping you win in this game called life? That's ultimately the answer that I believe when I read Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. Because listen, every team does not have to have a six man, but you better make sure your top five are on point. So you have everything you need to go after your breathtaking future. So listen, as always, I look forward to hearing from you as we're wrapping up part two here. And I got one more part for you, but I want to hear the insight. I want to hear where this has challenged you. I want to hear where you're committed to grow. I want to hear where you might even let a person or two go. And I'm going to give you tools to let them go next time, right? I'm going to give you all the tools you need to let them go. So with that, it's always my honor and privilege to be here. Always my honor and privilege to pour into you and give you great insight. Now, two favors. One, want to hear what value you got out of today, but share this because somebody in your village, one of your colleagues, this may be the very insight they need because it's time to build a winning team and not realizing that relationships are currency and it's all about the relay. All right. So I look forward to hearing from you and I'll see you next time for part 3. Bye, y'all.